Hey guys, Nick Clayton here with another episode of The Bridge. Today we're with Dana Santis, the mobility maker, well known for improving performance by reestablishing breathing patterns. So Dana, I've heard you say that breathing is a fundamental movement pattern. Can you explain that a little bit?
Absolutely. Most people are aware that breathing can impact your physiology and even your psychology and help us get into the parasympathetic state. So it's really important for recovery, mindset, and that's wonderful. It's profoundly powerful that way. However, it's also profoundly powerful when you view it as a movement pattern. And the reason I think it's fundamental is because I believe that it influences virtually all other movement patterns in the body. There isn't another controllable movement pattern besides blinking that we do on a more regular basis during the day. It can happen up to 24,000 times a day. Now that isn't optimal. That's when your breathing pattern is a little dysfunctional, more rapid and shallow, but 24,000 times a day, think about that. Yeah.
That's a lot. So Ken, I've also heard you talk about breathing patterns and the diaphragm affecting posture. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so the diaphragm attaches, as we know, to the rib cage and the lumbar spine, but also at its attachment to the lumbar spine, it runs through the psoas major, and it runs through it so interconnectedly that in cadavers they have trouble dissecting them. And everybody talks about like the psoas major as this influential muscle, influencing gait, influencing overall movement and posture. But now the diaphragm, because it's connected to the two elements that we think about for posture, right? The rib cage and the spine. The quality of your breathing and the function of the diaphragm actually have a huge dictation over the position of your rib cage and your spine. Again, up to 24,000 times a day, that movement is happening. So
yeah, that's a lot. So you're going to show us some exercises to restore breathing patterns?
Yes.
Let's take a look at it.
The foundational exercise that I use to train breathing is what I call a breathing bridge. So we start in this position like a glute bridge, and the reason I do that is because we're trying to train the diaphragm to not only function well for respiration, but also to function well as a core stabilizer and as a posture muscle. So it doesn't work in isolation, as we discussed, right? It works together with other muscles, including, we want it to work with the glute max, the transverse abdominis, but especially the pelvic floor. So I give you this block, so we get a little bit of adductor engagement, so the pelvis is more neutral and the hips aren't opening up. And then I always assess my clients to see, is your head dropping back too much? And a lot of times if you have a bit of that upper cross syndrome, you're going to end up then cranking your neck back. Yours isn't really bad, right? And so you try to pack your neck, and I cue that, but I want to give you a little assist. So I think these two towels will help. Sometimes I have to use even an Airex pad. It depends on, what degree. You don't want to put them in flexion, though. That looks nice and neutral. It feels good?
Feels great.
Okay.
I'm ready for a nap.
All right, no. So remember now, we're training breathing, which means you have to put a lot of effort in. People usually think breathing, and they're like, oh, it'll be so relaxing. Not quite. Make sure your feet are hip distance apart. Your hips are a little wider than that. There you go. They're not that wide. In a little bit more. And alignment is essential because I want to start from a neutral position as much as possible. Okay, so we're working on making sure that the ribs are going to move the way that they need to support the diaphragm's contraction and relaxation. So on the exhale, I want you to start with the exhale. You're going to drive these ribs in, back, and down towards your waist. So you don't need to inhale to exhale. You've always got some air in there, so let it out. Good, that's excellent. So we're trying to narrow this infrasternal angle. Now when you think all the air is out, give me a little more. Now I want to use transverse abdominis and glute max for the pelvic tilt. A little higher. Don't inhale on me. A little higher. Good. Now we'll inhale. And see how your chin's kind of coming up? Drop it down a little bit more. Good. Exhale. Money's in the exhale, because if we can get the ribs to come in, back, and down, form that zone of apposition for the diaphragm to relax, then we're going to be able to take a full inhale. I usually do 5 breaths like this, but we're only going to do 3. Drop your chin down a little bit. Now inhale. Beautiful. That's very good. Don't pull from there. That's excellent. Exhale. So you notice that his ribs are going out. They externally rotate on the inhalation. as the diaphragm flattens and contracts. And then on the exhalation, the diaphragm's doming up here. Let it all out. Good. And then this will be the last one. Inhale. Nice. Don't pull from there. Exhale. So when you feel that you're starting to pull from there, you want to stop. At the end of this exhale, bring your hips back down. So usually we do 5 breaths, and I do this in sets of 2, where I give the client an opportunity to relax in between. But did you feel the difference from when you were actually using your diaphragm versus pulling from up here, using all these accessory breathing muscles?
Yeah, absolutely. And I could feel that once I was breathing from up here, my chin would go up. And
Yeah.
so that was my cue. So I've been practicing this since I saw your presentation, and it feels fantastic. But it's always good to get that refresher and figure out what I'm doing right, what I'm not doing right.
Yeah, and the good news is, so you've been practicing this, and that's why your ribs, like you've mobilized your ribs a lot more than when I first felt them before.
Yeah.
So that's excellent, and usually within about 2 weeks of practicing this once a day, twice a day is better, but 2 sets of 5 breaths, then just like any other movement pattern, your body starts to say, this is more functional, I can use this one better. So this next exercise is also, of course, a breathing exercise, but it's really designed, again, for that integration of core stabilization, but posture. So I know the breathing bridge is a little difficult for people, especially initially. This one is definitely a challenge. So be ready, but when you do it correctly, it makes a big difference in getting you to understand what you need to activate and what you need to inhibit in order to come into better posture.
All right,
Okay.
let's see it.
All right, so we start, and I call it a roll into a ball core exercise, right? So you're gonna start almost rolling yourself into a ball. Now, I want you not quite pigeon-toed, but I want the big toes to touch and the heels to be separated so that the hips, again, aren't rotating out. It's going to take adductors to bring the knees in. Before we bring the knees in, what I want you to do is do that exhale where the ribs come in, back and down. Get the core on, and then start to bring the knees in. It should be easier to find the pelvic floor and adductors. Good. Now, you're going to externally rotate your shoulders like this. Upper traps are going to want to turn on to help you out with all of this, but don't let that happen. Now, inhale, take the arms out. Good. As you exhale, you're going to pull your elbows straight in, find lower traps, pull the scaps down. Good. Inhale, arms out. So don't take them up, keep them shoulder level. Exhale, bring the elbows in. Scaps down. There you go. They have to ride the rib cage. Inhale out. We're going to do 5. You got me? Yeah. Exhale, bring it in. Good. Nice. And then exhale. Is that your last one, I think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, good. Okay, now knees out to relax. Yeah, because adductors are probably sizzling.
Yeah, it's when I was focused on the scaps down, adductors would come out, I'd think about them, and then I'd ride up a little bit.
Yeah, it's a lot all at once, but
It's a lot harder
the
than it
key
looks like.
tying it all together
Yeah.
is the diaphragm and the breathing, right?
Yeah, I can see it. That was great.
Absolutely.
Dana, great. Thank you for showing us those 2 exercises. Now, I want to ask, a lot of us have done, traditional belly breathing. So I've done that. That felt way different than the belly breathing the exercise did. So what is the difference between traditional belly breathing and the exercise that you showed where you're really cueing rib movement?
So I think that belly breathing is well-intentioned, but and 5,000 years ago, when we couldn't really see inside our bodies and understand how it all worked, and we started doing belly breathing with yoga, I get it. But we've come so far now, we understand how the diaphragm functions, and we don't have lung tissue in our belly. So I believe it's the wrong place to direct people to, because we're working on mobilizing the ribs to facilitate functional diaphragm contraction and relaxation. And so by focusing more on rib kinematics, that's going to facilitate that. So that's my issue there. But then I think also belly breathing, when would you practice it? When you were trying to get parasympathetic.
Right.
And then that makes people think diaphragmatic breathing is something you only do when you want to recover and restore. And it's true, it's good for that. But when we think about diaphragmatic breathing only as that aspect, it's like saying I only do bicep elbow flexion sometimes. right? I
Right.
mean, you have to use your bicep to flex your elbow. Your diaphragm is your primary respiratory muscle, so you have to use it all the time. Now, in cases where you're doing an athletic activity that's going to force your respiration to be shorter and more shallow, we're going to recruit these accessory breathing muscles. And that's okay. That's an adaptation that makes sense, but we don't take the diaphragm out of it. It's still helping to pull the air in. And then the most important thing is when you stop the athletic activity, you have to be able to go back to functional diaphragmatic breathing,
Gotcha.
not belly breathing.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Final question. You showed us 2 really good exercises. Can you talk a little bit about programming? Are there varieties of exercises that you progress people to?
Okay, so that breathing bridge, as I said, is a foundation. Most of my athletes have that in their program as part of their warm-up. A lot of them use it to conclude like part of their cool down as well. And the reason for that is because you felt that it was getting you in better alignment. We're activating the muscles that need to activate, and we're inhibiting those overused muscles that are part of usually a compensatory strategy. So that sets them up better for their lift or whatever kind of activity they're going to do. So definitely as part of a warm-up. But as for the everyday person, I recommend it as one of the first things that you do in the morning. Because think about it, we get out of bed and we go into those sided routines, brushing our teeth, opening door, just into that regular routine. What if you could set your body in a better position? So that's what I recommend to everybody. Start your day with that, and then end your day with that. Because instead of getting into bed with a cranky back and bad posture, let's reset it. You're going to sleep better. You're going to breathe better. It makes a lot of sense. Now, the other thing was that not everybody's going to be doing that other roll into a ball core, kind of brutal exercise that you did. They're not going to do that when they first wake up in the morning, and that's fine. Add it into your core program. So when people tell me they're going to do core, usually that means like a lot of planks and a lot of sit-ups and forget about sit-ups, but planks are fine, but add that in again so that you're activating where you need to activate, you're inhibiting where you need to, and then when you go into other core exercises, you're in a better position. Nice. So that's where I'd put it.
More progressions? How would I find more?
More progressions. I do have more progressions in my book on practical solutions for back pain relief that just came out. And the reason for that is because breathing is a fundamental exercise for relieving back pain for all the reasons we were talking about. It has influence on posture. But yeah, I have tons of progressions. There are like 40 exercises in that book.
I'm going to have to check it out. Guys, thanks for watching. Here with Dana Santis, the mobility maker, in a garage gym, so you can do this stuff anywhere. We'll see you next time.